Sri Aurobindo's epic, Savitri, is not merely a poem, it is the distilled record of a decades-long alchemical experiment in consciousness. To approach this monumental work is to enter a laboratory where the boundaries between spiritual practice and literary creation dissolve. To understand its purpose and its form, one must turn to the master of the laboratory himself. This exploration delves into Sri Aurobindo's own words on how and why he wrote his magnum opus, offering an illuminating glimpse into the direct fusion of intensive yogic practice and poetic art. Part 1. A Means of Ascension. To grasp the essence of Savitri, it is essential to understand the author's profound personal motivation for creating it. For Sri Aurobindo, the poem was not a project separate from his spiritual discipline, but was inextricably linked to his own development. This transforms the act of writing from a mere transcription of past experience into an active instrument of spiritual change. The poem served as both a record of his journey and a vehicle for propelling it forward. The very process of creation was a process of attainment. Sri Aurobindo described Savitri as a means of ascension, a powerful concept revealing its function as a tool in his own yoga. He explained this iterative method with remarkable clarity. Quote, "I began with it on a certain mental level. Each time I could reach a higher level of consciousness, I rewrote from that level." This process of constant revision was not about aesthetic polish, but was a discipline of re-envisioning the work from progressively higher standpoints of spiritual realization. He viewed the epic not as a static work, to be written and finished, but as a dynamic, quote, field of experimentation to see how far poetry could be written from one's own yogic consciousness and how that could be made creative. This deeply personal purpose, using poetry as an engine for spiritual transformation, fueled the poem's broader ambition to establish an entirely new form of literary expression. Part 2. Redefining Mystic Poetry. Savitri was conceived from the outset as a groundbreaking literary endeavor. Sri Aurobindo was not content to write within established traditions. He was actively forging a new path for spiritual poetry on an unprecedented scale, creating a form capable of bearing the weight of a total spiritual vision. He explicitly defined his work as, quote, an experiment in mystic poetry, spiritual poetry cast into a symbolic figure. He understood that such a new attempt required a departure from established literary conventions. Old techniques were only useful if they were assimilable, otherwise they would merely constrain the vision. The primary quality this new poetry demanded was not vague sentiment, but a tangible and vivid presentation of spiritual realities. The central artistic demand, he insisted, was above all for, quote, a spiritual objectivity, an intense psychophysical concreteness. Here lies the core of his new poetics. Spiritual objectivity is the capacity to perceive and render spiritual realities as stable, observable phenomena, not as subjective moods. This is directly linked to psychophysical concreteness, which describes the experience of these phenomena having a tangible, almost physical substance and form. The immense difficulty of achieving this concreteness when describing the transcendent highlights the fundamental challenge every mystic poet must confront. Part 3. Bridging Two Worlds. Bridging the communication gap between the mystic author and the conventional reader is critically important. Sri Aurobindo identified this as the real stumbling block his work sought to overcome. The problem lies in a fundamental difference in perception. The mystic, Sri Aurobindo explains, perceives spiritual truths as, quote, real and present, even ever present to his experience, intimate to his being. For the ordinary reader, however, these same truths can appear as intellectual abstractions or metaphysical speculations. The poet is therefore tasked with describing a world of experience that is utterly foreign to the reader's normal frame of reference. To make this point tangible, Sri Aurobindo provides a striking example. He describes an event where a stream of anger rose up and rushed toward him. If he wrote, "His anger climbed against me in a stream," a reader would likely interpret it as a mere image. Yet, for him, it was a sensible experience, a fact he was describing in exact terms. The linchpin of his argument is that this was not a subjective impression, but an objective event, as he states, the truth of it being confirmed afterwards by the confession of the person who had the movement. This external verification is his crucial evidence that all the spiritual and psychological realities in Savitri are of this character. This illustrates a core tenet of his worldview. For a mystic, quote, there is no such thing as an abstraction. Concepts the mind treats as abstract, like consciousness itself, possess a palpable reality. As he explains, quote, consciousness is the very stuff of existence, and I can feel it everywhere, enveloping and penetrating the stone as much as man or the animal. Conveying this world of concrete spiritual realities is the challenge that directly informed the poem's unique methods of expression. Part 4. The Language of Vision. The unique philosophical goals of Savitri directly dictated its expressive style. The poem's language is a precision instrument, engineered to articulate a reality that lies beyond the grasp of ordinary intellectual analysis. Sri Aurobindo's aesthetic was therefore driven entirely by his spiritual purpose. The expression in Savitri, he clarifies, has three primary aims: force, directness, and spiritual clarity and reality. He preemptively addresses potential criticisms of obscurity, arguing that if the poem is not understood, it is because, quote, the truths it expresses are unfamiliar to the ordinary mind, not because of any attempt at a dark or vague profundity. The thought process embedded in the verse is equally distinct. He describes it as, quote, intuitive or more than intuitive, always expressing a vision, a spiritual contact or a knowledge which has come by entering into the thing itself, by identity. This last phrase points to a profound mystical state. Knowledge by identity is a mode of perception where the poet does not merely observe a truth but becomes it, eliminating the distance between subject and object. This is the source of the poem's unique authority. This method serves a philosophy of all-encompassing scope, as Savitri, quote, tries to express a total and many-sided vision and experience of all the planes of being and their action upon each other. To achieve this, he refused to be constrained by any mental rule of what is or is not poetic. In his own words, I am justifying a poet's right to think as well as to see and feel, and to use whatever language is necessary to convey the truth of vision and experience. This commitment to a new mode of expression, driven by a totalizing philosophy, naturally required an equally rigorous technical foundation to support it. Part 5. Mastering the most difficult meter. The sublime spiritual vision of Savitri was not left to float in an abstract ether, it was grounded in the concrete reality of poetic craft. For Sri Aurobindo, the poem's transcendent aims had to be executed with immense technical skill, using a form he considered among the most demanding in the English language. Savitri is written in blank verse, a choice made with a deep appreciation for its inherent challenges. Sri Aurobindo's assessment of this form was uncompromising, quote, blank verse is the most difficult of all English meters. It has to be very skillfully and strongly done to make up for the absence of rhyme, and if not very well done, it is better not done at all. To succeed, a poet must master a subtle and complex musicality to elevate the language. Sri Aurobindo outlined several key requirements for this mastery, instructing that a poet must constantly vary the meter through a skillful play of pauses, an always changing distribution of caesura and stresses, supple combinations of long and short vowels, much weaving of vowel or consonant variation and assonance. This meticulous attention to technical craft was not an end in itself. It was the indispensable framework required to manifest the poem's vision and give its spiritual substance a tangible form. Conclusion. In Sri Aurobindo's own account, Savitri emerges as far more than a poem. It is the culmination of a profound synthesis, a work where personal spiritual ascent provided the driving force, a radical new poetics defined the mission, and an exacting technical craft provided the structure. These three streams converge into a single integrated work of vision. The poem stands as a testament to the belief that the highest spiritual truths demand the highest artistic mastery, a mastery necessary to achieve that intense psychophysical concreteness, where vision and form become one.